I lived in California. I was subjected to the unbelievably draconian lockdowns that you guys here, I certainly don't have to talk about from an Australian perspective. And as a matter of fact, when I lived in Los Angeles, where it was basically as bad as it could be in America, we would see videos out of Australia and go, well, I guess it's not that bad here.
I'm Rob Forsyth, and this is Liberalism in Question, a podcast from us here at the CIS, looking into challenges, aspects and opportunities for classical liberalism. I'm delighted and a little intimidated that my guest today is Dave Rubin from the Rubin Report. Whereas this little podcast gets its hundreds, Dave gets his hundreds of thousands. Perhaps you have 3.1 million subscribers for the Rubin Report.
That's what they tell me, or that's what you told me right before we sat down. So it's
Well,
pretty
look,
good. It's pretty good.
Why?
Why? Well, I think it's probably central to the reason we're sitting here, which is that liberalism, which it's always nice to be in a place where I can talk about liberalism without having to give a definition for it. Liberalism has so collapsed from an American perspective. And I was one of the first people about a decade ago when I was on the left to say, hey, liberals, let's be liberal again. Let's defend free speech. Let's defend free enterprise. Let's be open to other ideas. Let's not shut everybody down. It was at the beginnings of cancel culture. Let's not say that everyone who is our ideological opponent is a racist or a Nazi or the rest of this. And by saying that, I suddenly was getting pushed out of all of the liberal circles. And then as that happened, the doors to the conservative areas started opening up. And I just started peering through those doors and talking to people that I thought were my ideological opponents, people like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and Larry Elder and many others. And suddenly I found that what the liberal principles that I believed in seemed to be being defended better by conservatives.
Actually, we will need some definition, I think.
Sure.
Because liberalism in the US has a slightly different feeling to Australia. When you say liberal circles, what do you mean by liberal in that
So
sense?
I mean liberal the way you guys mean liberal, but not the way Americans say the word liberal. So that's why it's funny to me that I can come here and say I'm a liberal and not feel ashamed about it. You guys understand what liberalism, which is about logic and reason and individual rights and limited government and laissez-faire economics and all of these things, which in an American perspective really sounds like libertarianism. And we can talk about the little whittled differences between liberalism and libertarianism. But so as I started talking to people on the right, I thought, well, I still have differences with them, with the conservatives, but they're at least willing to talk about those differences.
So what were the other liberals like then, the ones you were running away from?
So the liberals at the time, well, they're no longer liberal. I would say they're the most illiberal people. They're the progressives now. And the progressives, their main goal is to progress, but it's at the expense of liberalism, meaning they're always looking, they're in a car and they see progress down that way and they're always going to it. But they don't really seem to know what it is, other than it means more power, or it means more centralization, or more control over other people's lives. They seem to have I would say it's something like this. The liberal believes that you can change the world on the margins, I think. That the world is a certain way, and perhaps you can change it a little bit for the better, and hopefully towards freedom, hopefully towards individual liberty. The progressive believes that they can grab the world and change it immediately. And if they can't change it immediately, they will destroy the person who's trying to stop them. So over the years, one of the things that I've said many times that seems to have caught on is that defending my liberal beliefs has become a conservative position. So again, that's why it's refreshing to come to Australia and talk to liberals, and they go and talk.
You were a bit you're of the left when you started this journey.
Yeah.
In fact, you told me before we started recording, you and Charlie Kirk used to be a kind of a show, left and right on the campuses.
Yeah.
What did you believe then, and what do you believe now?
Well, in some sense, it wasn't that I changed that much. It was the hysteria of the left that sort of pushed me out. But to that, I do admit that I have evolved on certain issues. So I definitely shifted more right economically over the years in terms of lower taxation and lower regulation, less concern about, sort of world government, environmental issues and things of that nature. So certain things moved me to the right. But it wasn't that I moved as much as the left just kept going to the left. I mean, they just kept moving more towards socialism or collectivism or Marxism or whatever you want to call that. So I do credit Charlie with being very open. You know, it was not easy for him at the time to go on tour with a lefty because he knew he was going to get hit by his guys on the right. And it wasn't that easy for me because I knew I was going to get hit by my guys on the left. However, I do give him credit that I ultimately came more to his position.
You ruined the whole thing by becoming moving to the right. You ruined it all.
Well, you know what? I don't mind hearing that because in some sense the idea of it was ruined by me moving, but really it wasn't us that ruined it. It really was the lefties. You know, from an American perspective, there's very few people that defend liberalism anymore. So Bill Maher has been, I would say, the standard bearer of American liberalism. I like Bill, we're friends, we've done each other's shows, but I still think now he has some blind spots when it comes to, because he still will vote for people who are wildly illiberal, like California Governor Gavin Newsom, who is a leftist, not a liberal. So, yeah.
Dave, how did it come to this? What's the momentum that pushed the liberals to the left, and why is liberalism not being defended? I mean, you're defending it.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So I think that this is what I would call the soft underbelly of liberalism. Liberals generally are very open-minded. Liberals are very tolerant. Liberals like diversity and all of these buzzwords that all kind of sound good and to some extent are good. But you need somebody to guard the door. And this is where conservatives are much better. Conservatives are much better at guarding the door. The great Douglas Murray, who, although he says he's a conservative, has a lot of classically liberal ideas. He always says that one day the barbarians will be at the gate and we'll be debating what gender pronouns to call them. And I love that line. And that, in some sense, is what the liberals started doing. Instead of saying, when all the gender stuff popped up, for example, instead of saying, you know what, no. This pronoun stuff is nonsensical. You can't change your gender if you wish as an adult to put on a dress if you're a male and call yourself a different name. That's fine. We believe in individual liberty and that's up to you. But stop playing with the silliness of telling me that your biological sex changed or something. So the liberals just decided to just give it all away. And they did that because they put tolerance at the top of their hierarchy of importance. And tolerance, if you were ordering the important things that you should have as a set of ideas to live a flourishing life, tolerance should be there, but it should probably be third or fourth. It definitely should not be first, because tolerance first creates an unbelievable amount of intolerance, actually.
And is it that growth of compassion? I'm trying to work out the massive energy behind compassion, that no one should be hurt. Ironically, it hurts a lot of people, of course. Is that what's gone on in the last 5 years?
Yes, this is what Gad Saad, who's a professor at Concordia, Canada, calls suicidal empathy. Right. And a lot of people have been talking about this, that because you have so much compassion, you have so much empathy, you want to help everybody, that you actually end up hurting everybody. So you have so much compassion for the other that you will welcome the other into your society regardless of what the other's beliefs are. So you will welcome in people who have cultural and religious beliefs that are completely antithetical to your own beliefs, but you will do it in the name of tolerance and diversity. And it sort of sounds nice, but let 1, 2, 3 generations go by and you have a completely different culture, often that is wildly intolerant than of you.
Where does the intolerance within the liberals come, pushed by compassion? Why does the left become so intolerant, given the fact you've said that the mistake was tolerance number one?
Right. So that's the real psychological question, or almost metaphysical question around what's going on with the progressives. I mean, most people would say it's because their entire belief system is politics, that they don't believe in God or anything sort of above the here and now.
No transcendent authority.
There's no transcendent authority.
Right. It's totally the immanent. Totally.
So if we're always playing at this layer, and you're always constantly trying to reorder things to keep this layer exactly how you want it to be. Conservatives, generally, because they believe in that transcendent layer, there's an understanding that politics is just part of life, not all of life. Yes. And that's what, to reference what I started with, I mean, I think that's what it is. I think you can move the world a little bit. That's it. and hopefully you move it a little bit to the better. But if your quest is to upend everything, it's one of the things, it's sort of like when you listen to these young progressives and they have so much vigor and righteous indignation and they're so angry and all of these things under the guise of tolerance and rainbow flags and everything else. It's like, what's really going on there? Is this really a political thing that they're doing? It's obviously not a political thing. It's obviously something much more spiritual or religious in nature. And I'm sorry to tell them that you will never own the world. You can destroy a lot, but you'll never own the world.
In fact, one of the struggles liberalism has is that it's a philosophy of limited expectations.
Yes.
What do we want? Gradual change. When do you want it? When
Give me a minute.
Yes. That's not a run to the barricades, except.
But it's the best way for humans, I think, to right the ship. Yes. Because if society is a ship in a stormy ocean, and the world is always stormy, you can't make sudden moves. You can do things slowly and calmly and effectively. And ironically, the liberal position is the true position of tolerance. And yet they hate the liberal. In some sense, the lefties hate the liberals more than they hate the conservatives. It's easy to mock the conservatives. They're religious and they only care about money and blah, blah, blah. And of course, none of that's really true, but it's sort of an easy little thing that they can do. The liberals, they hate the most because they know the liberals aren't evil in some sense, and that the liberals are just trying to make little moves. And that scares them more, I think. So I get way more hate, let's say, from the progressives, or I would say are exclusively my haters, versus people on the right. I have some differences, maybe on same-sex marriage or even on abortion. I'm begrudgingly pro-choice, I would say, for maybe 12 weeks. That's not a conservative position, but they don't hate me for it. No. The lefties hate me for it, almost exclusively.
So you think that the hatred is being driven by more than just, we said, spiritual, metaphysical, something deeper is driving it? Do you think if people give up belief in the transcendent,
I think there's
then everything goes?
Is
Nietzsche right?
I think he was right, and I would say Jordan Peterson, who I had the pleasure of touring with here last time I was in Australia and going all over the world with. I mean, this is something he's talked about for a long time. I mean, this is the idea of the God-shaped hole, and if you remove God altogether, you're going to fill it up with something. And if what is going to drive you is that you have an understanding of the world that everyone must bow to, you're going to do a bunch of awful things. The progressive quest is utopian in nature, but of course, as you know, there is no utopia on Earth.
Well, there is. Yes, the word literally means no place.
Quite literally means no place. And where does it take us? Well, it will always take us into dystopia.
Yes, and it also, I think, a liberal flavour of things is to think of the limits of human abilities. It's surprisingly paradoxical. A liberal, on the whole, believes in you can trust people's decision-making spread out, market, rather than one person deciding. At the same time, this comes from an awareness that we're limited in our knowledge. This was Hayek's great argument for a free market. No one person can know enough to run things properly. We need to spread it out. So liberals are both limited in their belief in human ability to know and human ability to change.
Well, and that's why what's happened from an American perspective has been so disappointing to the Democratic Party. We should have a center-left party that makes sense. You have a place where the liberal can say, I'm a liberal, and it makes sense. Yeah. What has happened from an American perspective is, if you are a liberal, so Bobby Kennedy, who has the Kennedy name, and he was running as a Democrat only 2 years ago, now he's in MAGA. He's a Trump conservative. Tulsi Gabbard, who was running as a Democrat only 4 years ago, is now in MAGA. Someone like Joe Rogan, who's a pot-smoking, MMA fighting, podcaster who never in his right mind 10 years ago would have said he's a conservative. Now he's part of MAGA. So everyone that's sort of center these days has now been shifted to the right, and that's because the left went so far.
So you're getting a hollowing out, is what you're saying,
yes,
in America, to the left and the right. Now we have to talk about MAGA. I think many of us in Australia are very mixed about the whole thing. We admire certain things that Trump does, but I don't think we quite understand the movement. It doesn't resonate with us in a way. What's its power, and is it a danger to liberalism?
Sure. So, well, its power is one thing. Its power is one thing,
So
and
why?
the power is Donald Trump. As simple as that. The power is the force of Donald Trump. That he is.
So if he wasn't there, it wouldn't be a movement.
No, because the movement in and of itself doesn't have a pure politically cohesive ideology. It has Donald Trump. I think there are good things that are attached to that, and there are. So we'll get to the second part of the question in a moment.
Yeah.
But in terms of what it is, it's Donald Trump that fought the system, fought the deep state, really brought the idea of fake news and the idea that we've all been lied to about so many things, and that Donald Trump was this over-the-top, ridiculous hair, orange billionaire who suddenly was more everyman than anyone else before him. So that is the force of Trump. So that's one part, and I get the part that the average Australian, who maybe likes some of the policies, might still struggle with some of the way he speaks. I believe me, I didn't vote for him the first time around either. I voted for the Libertarian candidate, who was the most classically liberal at the time, but he got 1% of the vote. I voted for Trump 2 other times. But to the second part of the question is, could it basically veer out of control? In essence, right? Like, could it become authoritarian? I think was the.
Well, there are a number of concerns. One is it's not principled, and that's a worry. But and therefore it's hollowing out genuine liberal thought. But secondly, in enthusiasm to achieve things, you push over laws, you push over rules, and I can see why there's that impatience with judges, impatience with laws, but in the long run, that is an acidic to the actual structure of it. So you head insipidly, not saying that Trump's an authoritarian, but you head towards autocracy in principle.
So on the unprincipled part, I'm not sure. I don't see Trump as unprincipled, actually. Now, and the reason I would say that is Trump, I think, is directionally right about most things. Even if you look at what's transpired in the Middle East over the last 2 or 3 weeks, Trump basically said America will lead peace through strength. I understand that this is a Western civilization battle, and he was able to bring peace, to whatever extent we want to use that word, even though it's not kumbaya peace. That was because he was directionally right about what American power can do.
Just so that this is not just a battle between Israel and a barbaric death cult or Islamist cult.
No, this is the battle for the West.
Unpack that a little further for me.
Well, I can tell you, having just spent a few days in Melbourne, where I now know
there's a battle for the West in Melbourne.
No, it's clearly on the streets of. Well, I can tell you, there's Palestinian flags all over the place. Without doing a major history of the Middle East, I mean, Palestine is a country which never existed, designed in the minds of people who only want to destroy the countries they live in. And I think that I would say that Australia, and I would say that the UK and France and Belgium and most of Western Europe better realize that very quickly, because if Israel's going to be fine one way or another. They've basically annihilated their external enemies. They've got their hostages back. They have a national ethos that is strong and makes sense. Most of Europe does not. You guys have I would say, a different problem because of geography, and it's less of a problem in a certain sense.
But we can't solve that. We're stuck here.
Right, but you have some self-inflicted things in that you don't have an illegal immigration problem. You have a legal immigration problem. But anyway, I would say that that Trump is directionally right about most things, and one of the things he's directionally right about is the battle for the West. So whether he's perfectly principled, or if the question is, does he have a perfect set of political views that makes ideological sense? Of course the answer is no. Of course not. Is Donald Trump the conservatives love Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump a real conservative? Well, the answer obviously is not, in that he was a New York liberal, but then what did he do for conservatism? Well, he appointed judges that ultimately reversed Roe v. Wade. And conservatives clearly wanted Roe v. Wade reversed. Now, all it did was kick abortion back to the states. That made the liberals go crazy, except, as far as I know, nobody hasn't gotten an abortion that wanted one or anything else. So there's an ideological inconsistency there for sure. As to the part of whether it could veer out of control or lead to some other things, the answer to that, I would also say, is obviously yes. That could it? Because something that's built around a cult of personality, obviously.
And the American presidential system, despite all the efforts of your founding fathers to limit the presidency, does have within it the power of power creep, if I use that language, with it built into it.
Absolutely. And
when you mistakenly threw over your rightful king,
Yes, we
taxation avoidance
we,
purposes.
we damn well did, and we're still happy about that. But
Sorry to hear that.
but you're completely right. So if something is a cult of personality, then you can get a lot of principled people to do some pretty unprincipled things. And although I don't think Donald Trump has really done that, I think he actually has been bizarrely principled. I think the concern that you're expressing is absolutely right. And what I would say is this, that as the years go by, I intend to be on one of the things that I'm most proud of in my career, probably the thing I'm most proud of, is that I think I helped open up that tent so that the liberals who were really worried about Trump for the reasons you just laid out, I think I helped pave the road for some of them to come in. I will continue to work as hard as I can to make sure that the MAGA movement does not abandon the good liberal principles that have come in. But could it? Obviously, the answer is yes.
This may seem a very silly question. What actually do you do? You're a full-time podcaster.
Full-time podcast. What do I do? I don't know. Ask these guys. What?
But I mean, you've actually got a career.
Yes,
a career in podcasting.
A career in podcasting. I wrote a couple of books. I tour. You know,
the books are burnt. Don't burn this world. Don't burn this book.
That's the best last question I've ever got. What is it you do?
No. It just suddenly occurred to me that not all my viewers may.
Yeah.
Because
no, it's like an adult job.
Because it is a very interesting fact that there's in the world today you can actually have a career in podcasting. That's a remarkable.
I don't know if it's a career really, but there's some money around, and I pay these guys.
In fact, this is an interesting point. The rise of I'll say it's more than just social media. The whole interconnected world has meant the door is open for people like you, who are no longer blocked by the legacy media.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually we had one of our podcasts was with a man talking about the intellectual dark web.
Yes,
talking about this concept. Can you talk a bit about how your very existence is a sign of something that's changed in our society in the last 5 years?
Yeah. So the intellectual dark web actually that started in my garage. Actually, I built a home studio. I was really one of the first guys about 10 years ago to do that.
Just 10 years ago.
And I started sitting down with people like Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris and several of the other people I've mentioned here, like Gad Saad and others. And these were all sort of political, they weren't even political outsiders. They were just sort of people who were all outside of mainstream, who were incredibly deep thinkers, who were well accomplished, who just could not, the system would not let them in. They couldn't get on CNN. New York Times would not write a good piece about them or even a roughly fair piece. And we just started talking. And then through that, Joe Rogan was the other one at about the same time doing long form conversations. And then Eric Weinstein was the guy, the physicist, who came up with the phrase intellectual dark web. But basically what you're asking is there a way to circumvent the mainstream media? And there absolutely is now. I mean, we've dwarfed them. I would say the only thing that keeps the mainstream media relevant is that there's an incredible amount of money behind it. In that, you know, CNN, their 8 p.m. show probably has a budget of $50 to $100 million a year. My show has a budget maybe of 100th of that, quite literally, 100th of that. But we are able to connect with more people because of the phone. But it has a certain centralized power still. And all of us, the podcast world, it's the future whether they like it or not.
People often worry about people listening to their own ideas at a bubble.
Yes.
You got to comment on that? Is that a danger of the new world, or was it always a danger?
It's absolutely a danger that we will all just siphon off into our own little rabbit holes, and we will only the algorithm actually will just manipulate us into just believing one thing.
I listen to people that I believe in, and therefore I'm reinforced in it.
And we'll never see anything out. You know, it'll sort of be like Plato's The Cave. We'll have no idea what's outside of the cave. And of course, there's a huge, huge risk. I would say it was, in some sense, it was a necessary risk, meaning that the mainstream media had such centralized control for so long. The internet came, it was the Wild West, and for the first 15 years of social media, there were unbelievably great things and new ideas happening out there. Now we're entering a new phase, which I think is more of what you're talking about, which is that we're all kind of just, we can cater everything to ourselves. And what the fear is in something like that is, at some point, you have no idea what your neighbor might think about something. Yes. Scott Adams, who's a great cartoonist and thinker and podcaster also, created the Dilbert cartoons. He always talks about that there's one movie being played, but we all have completely different reactions to the exact same thing. And I think that that's right. And the question then is, well, what do you do in a society that people just simply don't believe anything that is in common. And I think we're going to really have to grapple with that going forward.
That would have serious implications
Yeah.
for the West,
For
because
literally everything.
it's not happening in other countries. It's not happening in China. It's not happening in the Islamic world.
No,
It's not happening in
we
Russia even.
right, but we don't want to become them either.
No, that's my point. That's my very point.
Right, so it's one of the freedom is also something that we have to really think about, the freedom from and freedom to argument. We want to be as free as possible. I don't want to censor any ideas on the internet, beyond the calls for murder or child, the very, very obvious stuff. But how do we then coalesce around something? And I would say it's probably much more difficult for us as Americans, because we are a multicultural society that's done it better than anyone else. So they're using that against us right now. We actually did the project. The project of liberalism, America is the best example of that for 250 years.
I take that.
But the fear is that as identity politics comes, as the algorithms point you this way and that way, we'll also be the easiest to be destroyed. Because it worked, because the soup was so good, it will almost just flit away in the easiest possible sense.
Now, in your don't burn this country, you try and actually be positive, I believe, to try and, because that's a rather alarming prospect. What, to quote Lenin, what is to be done?
Well, I would say most of the answers that I put in the book are that we should just turn, from an American perspective, we should turn back to our founding documents. The best example I can use on that is that during COVID, I lived in California. I was, subjected to the unbelievably draconian lockdowns that you guys here, I certainly don't have to talk about from an Australian perspective. And as a matter of fact, when I lived in Los Angeles, where it was basically as worse as it could be, as bad as it could be in America, we would see videos out of Australia and go, well, I guess it's not that bad here. So, but what you can do is what the founders intended and what the Federalist Papers are about, which is you can move to another state. You don't have to leave the country if something's bad. So we have the never-ending experiment of democracy, and I moved to what we now call the Free State of Florida, which I would say is the citadel of freedom really in the entire world, because we're the freest state in the freest country. So Florida, I think, is the freest place. We were a law and order state. We stayed open during lockdown. We allowed for commerce. We allowed for people to make choices over their health and their bodies and their ability to assemble and all of those things. And I think if most Americans would just look at the fairly simple documents that we have between you don't have to read the Federalist Papers, but if you would just look at the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, we have it all right there. We don't need much more.
But that's not enough for the West. That's another example of American exceptionalism.
Well, we're the leader.
You're well known for.
Yes, we're the leader. Well, we'd like to lead you. Then,
would you?
Right?
Is that what you'd like to do?
Well, I think we would like to do, and this, by the way, is where Donald Trump is quite good. If you remember Donald Trump's speech in Saudi Arabia about 6 or 8 months ago, I thought it was one of the best speeches I've ever heard from a politician, because he went there to a very different part of the world. And he didn't say, hey, we're here to tell you how to live and we're going to bomb you into submission and nation build. And he admitted some mistakes of American administrations in the past. He basically said, we're America. We're pretty good. We like freedom. We can open markets. We can offer defense. And we can do all sorts of things to help you. But you're going to have to be a little less extreme. You're going to have to be willing to open up your doors a little bit more. And you're going to have to be, get rid of some of this Wahhabism and some of this other stuff. And then I think largely what will happen in the Middle East over the next couple of years is going to be an offshoot of that. So it's not that America wants to force everybody to live the way we do. I think he has a good instinct to understanding what our values can create.
That's another set of questions, what to do with militant Islam, its future. And there is a future there, I think, which it's a tragedy what's going on in my view. There is a future for living, but it does mean adopting some fundamental liberal principles rather than theocratic principles in a society.
Well, that will be for them to decide in their societies. I think the bigger question is, what are we going to do in the West?
That was my question, actually, the West.
Look, when it comes to most of Western Europe, I am very black-pilled, as they say. I don't think that England has much of a chance against this. I don't think that France has much of a chance. There are too many people there reproducing too quickly. They have too much institutional power now, particularly in the UK. I mean, the amount of mayors and people in parliament.
And by this you mean what? Against this? Islam?
Yeah. So you see,
certain forms of Islam as a threat to the West in the West.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
And there's a certain version of it in your country. There's a certain version of it in my country. I think America has the best defenses. First off, our laws are the most freedom-loving laws in the world, and even the fact that freedom of speech is absolutely enshrined as a God-given right, I think is a big bulwark against a lot of totalitarianism, including Islamic totalitarianism
Within America itself.
Within America, but the other part is our Second Amendment. We are armed, and I know that's a big one for you guys. That there's a sort of cultural difference. Let's say
again, we're not comprehending of that. We know it's
right.
See, important. We look on bewildered.
Right, but we are armed in America. We have a better understanding of how actually to defend ourselves. Now, it doesn't mean we want to have to do it, but when the forces of totalitarianism or evil are at our door, we do know how to do it. We were also born out of revolution, and that's still a piece of us. I would also say that because we are about to run into our 250th year, this coming 2026, I think there's going to be a resurgence of sort of like a real American, a pro-America in the best way, a celebration of America. We've done 15 years of wokeism and are we systemically racist and all that stuff. And it's not that these guys will give up. They're never going to give up. But I think that there's going to be a resurgence of pro-America.
Things never stay the same. There are fads and there are movements going on. Trump's tariffs.
Yeah.
Not very liberal.
So I actually, my argument for Trump's tariffs.
For Trump's
tariffs? Well, no. So as a limited government guy, I don't like tariffs in general, right? So I'm more on board Thomas Sowell on tariffs or even Ayn Rand or whatever. So the idea of tariffs I don't like. What Trump has done with the tariffs as a point of pressure, I think basically needed to be done. There was almost no way around it. We Americans consume more than anybody, and we were basically getting screwed in pretty much every deal across the world. Everybody was doing better than us, and he's used them as a point of leverage. So I would still say what I've said all along with the tariffs is we still need to see where some of them land, but using some form of pressure to make sure that deals are a little bit more equitable, it's a use of government that I don't love. This is where I'm not purely libertarian, I would say, where I understand the purely, look, Thomas Sowell, probably the most influential thinker in terms of my economic.
Great black American economist, well worth reading.
Yeah,
well worth reading.
And I sat down with him for an interview that was probably my most, I think the only time I've ever been nervous interviewing anyone ever was when I sat down with him, because he was such a force of nature. And I knew how important the interview was going to be, and it went unbelievably viral. We have a moment right up top, because I'm sure you know his history well, and I said, you once were a Marxist, and what woke you up to what was wrong with that line of thinking? And he goes, facts.
Facts.
And that line just ripped apart the internet. So I'm so thrilled that I had a little play in a resurgence of him at, now he's 94 years old or something.
In fact, Sowell's comment there is one reason why liberals remain remarkably optimistic.
Yeah.
Because we think there's such a thing as reality, and one day you'll be mugged by it if you go down the wrong way. But there'll be pain on the way and loss. I'm not saying it's like that, but ultimately things will not work, and you'll come back to face.
A conservative is a liberal mugged by reality. And that also, when we've seen a lot of what's going on in our blue cities with crime and illegal immigration and things like that, suddenly you see people who are lifelong liberals. You know what? If you get mugged or your daughter gets accosted on the subway or something like that, you might start thinking about law and order a little bit differently. And then a year later, you're voting conservative.
So your defense of the tariffs is that the trade deals in themselves were not generally free trade deals.
Yes,
somehow rigged, and therefore this is that's your defense.
It was a resetting, basically. Okay. That I don't think any fair onlooker of the trade deals really thought they were fair from an American perspective. We were mostly subsidizing. It's sort of how we've dealt with all of the international agreements and NATO and the Paris Climate Accords and all of these things that we pay in, and everyone else kind of takes advantage or whatever. So Trump, I think, he has just looked at the world. Again, I think he's directionally right about things. So I think he was directionally right about getting other countries to pay in for NATO. Now they're doing it. I think he was directionally right about trying to get fairer trade deals. Now we're getting those to some extent. So yeah, I'm still intellectually, I don't like it because I understand why a tariff going this way and a tariff going this way is just going to screw all of us, the consumer. But if the trade deals in and of themselves were so out of whack, what was he going to do? Was he going to threaten to bomb everybody? We'll bomb you until you give us better trade deals. So I think it was the only way to make things a little bit fair.
We'll see.
But we shall see.
My combat reality will come over to roost on this.
I'd be happy to pick this up in a year from now and see where they all land.
May take longer.
Yeah.
One of the debates we have often on liberalism question is liberalism contained in itself, or does it need an underpinning of morality or of theology or of metaphysics? Can it be self-sustaining, or is it in fact always is it incomplete, a way of running a society, but not about the life's big questions? You got a view on that?
Yeah, well, this is a great debate that maybe you saw some of them a few years ago that Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris had for quite some time. And this is also the debate that
Sam Harris was one of the old new atheists.
He was one of what they called the Four Horsemen at the time.
Yeah.
And was a great defender of liberalism until Donald Trump appeared. And then he was so what we call Trump deranged that he ended up, I would say, supporting forces of illiberalism. But let's not go down that road. The question you're asking basically is, can the Enlightenment sort of stand on its own? That right? Like that.
I think that's a yes, it's a good important question.
That's really it. Does the Enlightenment, did it all just sort of magically come together, 300 years ago, or was there thousands of years of churning through ideas and philosophy and religion that got us there? I think one way or another, I don't see how you can argue that it just magically appeared 300 years ago. This is what Ben Shapiro would talk about, the connection between Athens and Jerusalem. So we had the ideas of Athens, of Plato and Socrates, and that was one set of human thinking. And then we had the ideas of Jerusalem, which was obviously the deep religious notions, and those two things came together to ultimately produce liberal societies.
I think that's right. Actually.
And it's
an ongoing tension too between the two. They're not entirely at peace.
No, they're not.
To the dynamic of Western society, in my understanding.
I completely agree, and I would say there's almost no way around it. If the liberals, in some sense, it's the first question that you asked. If the liberals could defend liberalism in and of itself effectively somewhere, we did it in America for a long time, but clearly right now they cannot do it. Again, it's the conservatives that are basically defending liberalism. If the liberals over time could defend liberalism, then I think you could probably make an argument that you could disconnect liberalism from everything else. But since they seem unable to, when times get tough, I suppose there's probably no way to disconnect it.
Now, I was often asked this question towards the end of my podcast. Thank you for your generosity, by the way.
No, it's been a pleasure. This is the type of conversone I like having more than the political minutia that we all get.
Well, that's right. We try and float a bit above it in this particular podcast. You're
and I'm very proud that I make a career doing this now.
I'm amazed.
It suddenly hit me. It's the first time.
And you're a relatively young man, at least from my point of view.
49.
Like I said, very young from my point of view. And you've got a young family.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic about the future?
I'm a world-weary optimist. That's what I always say to people. Well, I think connecting this to everything we've discussed, the liberal position, because you understand you can only nudge things one way, and you hopefully want to stop things from tilting the other way too much. That position doesn't lead to over-the-top optimism. And it shouldn't lead to over-the-top pessimism either. I would say certainly over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of things to be pessimistic at. After post-COVID, the strife on the streets that we've seen in America, what's happened to the blue cities, the immigration situation. There's a lot of things that would make you look at everything negatively. But ultimately, the reason I say world weary is that I'm not just some pie-in-the-sky optimist, like, oh my God, everything's going to be better all the time and everything's just wonderful and we'll only just succeed more and flourish more. No, I think that we have to fight relentlessly. You can never stop fighting. I think in America, we thought we could stop fighting. I think that that's what a lot of it is. We grew so fat on our success that the liberals, but it was really everybody, was kind of like, all right, we're good. We make all these great movies and we have all this stuff and it's going to always exist. But I fundamentally, and it's maybe perhaps we have twin 3-year-olds that, when you're looking in the eyes of children who have nothing but hope and joy and adventure and all of those things, it makes you realize this has happened before, it's going to happen again, and it's your job as a functioning adult, I think, to make sure that it doesn't go off the rails on your watch.
Yeah. Dave Rubin, thank you very much.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I thank you.
I'm Rob Forsyth. This has been another of the Liberalism in Question series podcasts from us here at the Centre for Independent Studies. Thanks for watching.
Previously on the Rubin Report. New York City, you're
My offer is this, nothing.
Democrats are caving to Donald Trump.
I wanted to get stoned and watch, well, play PlayStation mostly, or watch Billy Madison.
And I'm angry all the time.
I got a good night's sleep last night. Very exciting. All right, people, let's try this again. We had some technical difficulties on our stream that lasted for about 3 minutes there. You know, it is freezing. If you're a Floridian, you're freezing right now. I walked out, I was in sweatpants and a hoodie, had the hood over my head when walking the dog this morning. It's in the 40s. If you're a Floridian, that's freezing. There are iguanas falling out of the trees. They are not dead. They freeze because they're cold-blooded. They go unconscious. They fall into the street. If you are a nice person, you can move them to the side. Eventually, when it warms up, they will wake up. But apparently, the pipes that send us across the internet, they're freezing too. That's what we're dealing with over here. But I sound okay now? We're good? We're back? All right. Apparently, I sounded a little robotic or digitized or something. So let me just quickly repeat what I said at the top of the show moments ago. This is what Groundhog Day must feel like. Today is Veterans Day, and I actually did not even realize it until about an hour before the show today, because I wake up and I do the stupid scrolling on the Twitter machine and all that stuff. And you know, in the old days, on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, MLK, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, you'd see like a lot of people acknowledging the day, right? And now it's all devolved into just fighting and back and forth nonsense and doom scrolling and everything else. So I really did not even realize it was Veterans Day, which is one of the most important holidays that we have, because if it was not for the veterans, if it was not for those who serve, none of us would be, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the freedom to fight about nonsense all day long. And I say that with all due irony. So I thought one nice way to honor the veterans was with this very short quote from Ronald Reagan that I think gets it perfectly and succinctly. Some people live an entire lifetime and wonder if they have ever made a difference in the world. A veteran does not have that problem. So any of you who are veterans out there watching today, I thank you for your service. We are going to dive into all of the day's news, mostly about the shutdown, which is now over. Thank God. Oh, he raised the roof again. The government is back, zippity dippity. Yes, we just needed a couple Democrats to jump over the aisle and open up the government, and it finally happened. Listen to this from Breaking Report. The U.S. Senate has officially passed the CR to end the shutdown, sending the bill back to the House. And why don't we name the Democrats who jumped across, who were so brave to jump across the aisle and open the government, do their job? It was Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Dick Durbin from Illinois, John Fetterman from Pennsylvania, Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, Tim Kaine from Virginia, Jackie Rosen from Nevada, and Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire. Here is Scott Jennings over on CNN trying to explain to this rather young Democrat pundit, whose name need not even be mentioned because you'll never hear from again, that this was all the fault of the Democrats.
Scott, with all respect, you cannot put on the American people that Democrats were the one that were hurting people, making this plight.
Who was casting the votes against opening the government? Democrats or Republicans?
Who was casting
the votes?
Scott, who was wanting to cut SNAP benefits?
Nobody.
Republicans
voted to fund SNAP
who was playing up SNAP benefits after two courts ruled that it was unallowed?
Republicans voted to fund SNAP 15 times. Democrats voted to defund it 15
and you talk
times.
About the affordable,
and we had to get 8 to join us.
Health care.
Oh, guys, I barely listened to that clip because I was told when we threw to it, that kid there is Michael Douglas's son. So I guess he's a Sirius XM host. Michael Douglas, who might be my favorite actor. Do you guys know that? Michael Douglas, I think he might be my actual favorite actor of all time. Used to work out at the same gym, Equinox, on the Upper West Side with him years ago. We had a couple nice interactions. So that lefty ding dong is his son. Yes. Oh, that's so it all just sucks. Doesn't it just suck and blow? Oh, man. Well, anyway, the kid is a little confused as to what happened here because as Jennings points out, all they had to do, if the Democrats were so concerned about SNAP and they were so concerned about all of the government stuff, because there's nothing that they love more than the government, all they needed was a couple to jump across the aisle, which is what they did. And now, of course, we'll have more on this in just a second, the lunatics, meaning the AOC, moron Zamboni branch of the Democrat Party. Now they're going to try to take out anyone who decided to open up the government. Here is Jennings explaining to Abby Phillips, dim-witted Abby Phillips, that the government is going to open after the election. Of course, he did this on election night. Ding, ding, ding.
How are Republicans going to use leverage in their fight with Democrats when the Democrats are actually the ones with the upper hand in the eyes of voters?
Oh, I'm sure Democrats will be more than happy to open the government now. The election's over. I mean, part of the reason they shut it down was to get through tonight.
I mean, I
would suspect they'll be glad to open it up by the end of the week.
Adam Schiff, he was like, hold the line.
AOC, there's lots of rumors
AOC,
of people wanting to open it.
Look, I don't see what is the incentive for Democrats to back down when voters are basically saying Trump's not doing enough, it's the Republicans' fault, and then they basically handed the keys in this past election to the Democrats. Where's the leverage?
Again, these are blue states electing Democrats, not a shock. Democrats clearly wanted this shutdown to get through Election Day. I do think they are facing pressure from their internal coalitions. The unions, the air traffic controllers, the government employee unions are desperate to get the government back open. They're feeling a little bit of internal heat. But again, the election's now over. I'm sure tomorrow morning phones will start ringing and it'll be open soon enough. This was a political shutdown, and that's what they did, and now we're through the election.
Yeah, so that was on election night, obviously, and Jennings predicted it perfectly. Like, that is dart right in the center, absolute perfection. They did this through the election, ginned up the base. But again, you can't look too much into the results of the election because it was just blue cities and states that went bluer. That doesn't diminish the disaster that is incoming in New York City. But it is not some giant bellwether for the country. As always, Abby Phillips, it's like she barely knows what's coming out of her mouth as she says it. And I don't know that more people were attacking Trump over this. And the Democrats did completely cave post-election. Here is Scott Jennings, though, explaining, and now this is from yesterday, here is Jennings explaining how the shutdown actually has exposed the failure of the health insurance companies, because there is something legitimate to talk about around that.
This whole thing has exposed this outlandish money laundering scheme where your tax dollars go right into insurance companies and your health insurance never gets better, your health care never gets better, your health outcomes never get better. That's what we have exposed here. So what our responsibility is as a Republican Party, how do we stop getting your tax money to insurance companies, and how do we put more actual money into the health care of the American people? Because I can assure you, writing a bunch of checks to insurance companies doesn't make your health care any better.
Right. So he's hitting a couple things there. I mean, first, he's broadly hitting, like, we should really be thinking in a new way about health care. Right. This is what the MAGA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement that became so integral in allowing MAGA to return just a year ago, is all about. Right. Like, we keep thinking, oh, we should just do whatever we want with our bodies. We should eat all of this crap and the seed oils and the poisons and all of the sugar and all of the stuff and the high fructose corn syrup. We should do all that. And then we should just medicate the high hell out of ourselves. And the drug companies and the health insurance companies might subsidize some of that, but we'll all become fat and incapacitated. And by the way, we're all going to have to pay for everybody who does that, which really makes no sense. If you think about universal health care in some sense, it's like, why should all of the people who actually do take care of themselves, who do eat right, who do work out, who do the right things, if you're doing all of those things for yourself, why should the government be taking money away from you to then subsidize the health care for people that don't do any of those things? I mean, that's one of the problems when you start doing everything universally. You actually punish people who do things right, whether it's play by the rules as it pertains to economics and law, or whether it's literally taking care of their own lives. But he does make a broad point, which is that the Republicans should be now thinking about, okay, how do we rethink this thing so we stop taking dollars and just giving it to health care companies that don't make that the results of our healthcare does not turn out to be better or anything else. But the bumper sticker on all of this is that we didn't have the government for 40 days. We're all okay. Everyone's okay here. We didn't have it for 40 days, and it was all pointless. The Democrats who were screaming, this is going to kill people, people are going to starve, and blah, blah, blah. All they ended up doing by having these 6, 7 Democrats jump across the aisle was signing a clean CR, which is exactly what always happens. So this was completely on the Democrats. I hate to say it, but Michael Douglas's son was wrong. And they got nothing out of it other than the few Democrats that jumped across the aisle to do the right thing will now pay the price with the lunatic radical base. But here is Senate Majority Leader Mike Johnson explaining to Jake Tapper that this was just nothing. This was just a pure political show.
So every Republican in the House, every single one, which doesn't happen very often, voted for the clean government funding bill on September 19th. Will they all vote for this compromise, do you think?
I believe they will. The long national nightmare is almost coming to an end now, the beginning of the end, as I said this morning in my press conference. It was long overdue, and the irony is, Jake, it really was a shutdown about nothing. I mean, what we're voting on is effectively exactly what we offered them several weeks back. We've added some appropriations bills now, which we're in favor of because it's getting us back to the regular order. We'll take care of some other details, but I don't think Chuck Schumer got anything out of this other than a political show, and sadly, I think that's what he was after the whole time.
Yeah, so remember, it's basically, as Johnson lays out there, it's the same bill pretty much. The Democrats got no extractions. They got nothing out of this, but they were the ones that were screaming people were going to die and people were going to starve and everything else. And then 6 or 7 of them had enough and they caved. Now, interestingly, I thought this was really great. On October 23rd, which was 19 days ago, Senator John Kennedy predicted exactly how the shutdown was going to end. And watch this.
But if Chuck told some of the Democrats to go join the Taliban, they would say, where's the line, Mr. Leader? But that's why we're in a shutdown.
Yeah.
And here's how it's going to end, I predict. Chuck will go to 6 or 8 of his members and say, look, we got to get this thing back open. So I want you to vote to open it up, but don't tell anybody I told you so. I'm going to keep voting no so I can try to save face. Yeah. But you vote to open it back up.
Yes.
Now, nobody will be fooled. And the risk that Senator Schumer runs by doing that, there's a fine line between looking like you're in charge and mutiny. He doesn't want it to look like a mutiny because then he looks weaker. But that's how this thing will get open. Because the Democrats know they're not on solid.
So isn't that something? 19 days ago, John Kennedy got it perfectly right. It was 8 senators. We read their names there. Chuck Schumer was not in that list, right? So Chuck Schumer did exactly what Kennedy laid out. He did not vote for reopening the government, in essence, to save face, to make it look like to the progressives, see, Bernie, AOC, don't murder me, don't behead me just yet. Right? Because I'm still with you guys. I don't have control of these other guys. And whether he coordinated for them to do it or they were just like, we've all had enough of this charade. We're not going to placate to the lunatic progressives like you or whatever the answer to that is, it wasn't that hard to see what was going to happen here, right? And they got nothing out of it. And the irony is, while John Kennedy's right that Schumer, in essence, was trying to save face, Schumer gets nothing out of this. They hate him even more now because for them, it's like, all right, Schumer, whether you voted for it or not is irrelevant. You couldn't control these 8 radicals who voted to open up the government and give the SNAP benefits back to the people. We're for the people. We keep telling everyone's going to starve, but we're against opening the government so that they don't starve. It's just mind-numbingly retarded. Here's John Kennedy again. This is yesterday.
Look, Senator Schumer chose to have this shut down. And it's clear, it was clear at the time, it's clear now. He just dug up more snakes than he could kill. His demands were unreasonable. They were so unreasonable that they weren't even within the realm of possibility on my side of the aisle. And we were prepared to just sit there as much as it hurt. I mean, we didn't have a choice. We couldn't possibly do what Senator Schumer wanted us to do.
So the point of all of that is to show you that this was all predicted. The Democrats got nothing out of it. And much like the Scott Jennings thing, where he basically is like, yeah, they'll get through the election and then they'll open it up. there are some people that honestly do assess these things, and that's how you can see the results of it. So congratulations, Democrats, but really congratulations, Chuck Schumer. You're in a lot of trouble, but we'll get to that in just a second. Let me talk to you about Noble Gold for just a moment. Guys, gold has officially gone mainstream. Every day, more and more Americans are discovering the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it and invest in a simple way? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Their specialists are trained to help advisors like you go from confused to confident. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA or want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes sure the process is simple, secure, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and US-based service from a trusted team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit DaveRubinGold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That's DaveRubinGold.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. A guy who doesn't have a very strong future, his name is Chuck Schumer. Here he is after losing control of the party, having eight of the non-complete lunatic Democrats jump to the other side, abandon him. Here he is promising to continue the fight.
But let me be clear, however this vote turns out, this fight will and must continue. Democrats must fight because of millions of families will lose health care coverage. We must fight because children who are dying of cancer will not get health care coverage. We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin. And make no mistake about it, the American people know who is inflicting this health care trauma on them: Donald Trump and the Republicans.
In a weird way, I have sympathy with Chuck Schumer. Not that I have any sort of respect for him as a legislator, and he's kind of been wrong on everything. I don't think he is, as I've said many times, I don't think he is like a true America-hating loon like the progressive base. He isn't. And that's partly why they hate him. But he was trying to lead a party without really leading the party, right? Like, he needed to do some housekeeping within his own party. He didn't do it. You let the inmates in. Now they're running the asylum. If John Kennedy is right, and he basically said to those 8 guys, you guys go ahead and do it, I'll say no to save face, that didn't work either, because they're coming for you no matter what. So he really just got outmaneuvered here. But it's not just him. It's also Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama, who, again, I also don't think that he fundamentally, there are some of them that actually, I think, hate the idea of America. Most of the progressives, they fundamentally hate capitalism. They are not proud of our founding. They are not proud of our documents and our freedom and things like that. I don't think that's Schumer. I really don't even think that's Hakeem, right? I just have strong political disagreements with him. But their day is done in the Democrat Party. Listen to this word salad here as Hakeem tries to explain whether the shutdown was worth it.
Was the shutdown worth it?
We have waged a battle on behalf of the American people. First of all, Donald Trump and Republicans are the ones who shut the government down. They have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And the American people know it. And that's been the case for 7 consecutive weeks.
But at the end of the day, you didn't get what you want. So was it worth waging this fight?
At the end of the day, the fight lives on.
All right, well, the fight lives on, but I think it's not exactly the fight that you think. You think you're going to be fighting Trump now, but I hate to tell you, dude, you're going to be fighting the radicals of your own party. Who is one of those radicals? Well, she is 164th, 248th Native American. That is Pocahontas, Liz Warren. Here she is on November 7th explaining that Trump wants Americans to eat dirt. Then we'll flash forward to yesterday where Dick Durbin, one of those crazy 8 Democrats who decided to feed the hungry people, just watch.
The message to 42 million Americans from Donald Trump: eat dirt.
Many of my friends are unhappy. They think we should have kept our government closed indefinitely to protest the policies of the Trump administration. I share their opinions of this administration, but cannot accept a strategy which wages political battle at the expense of my neighbor's paycheck or the food for his children.
Listen, I don't have particular feelings towards Dick Durbin one way or another. Again, he's probably just like a neither here nor there Democrat who's mostly wrong on stuff. But again, I don't think he hates America. But he's right about that. I don't know why he had to read a statement instead of just being able to say it. It's like, Elizabeth, if you want them to eat dirt, what you were concerned about there is the people that are on SNAP. And again, we should figure out how many people are on SNAP and why are they on SNAP? And if you keep telling us it's 40 million people on SNAP, why is it that 40 million people need government assistance to eat? There's also a zillion videos out right now. There's a huge TikTok account that just started, I guess, or it started over the last couple of weeks, that's showing people on SNAP going into the store and the type of crap that they are buying. And it's all like the worst kind of foods, and they throw it into the bin and they're so proud of it. And then those are the same people who end up overweight and more of a drain on the healthcare system, which addresses what I talked about before. If we're all in it, if it's universal healthcare, and then we're paying certain people to eat all of the wrong foods, maybe there is a problem there, and maybe SNAP benefits should only go towards Whole Foods or something else, but I know they'll never have that conversation. But Elizabeth, if you really cared, Elizabeth, I got one for you. I posed this question on Twitter yesterday. I got some funny answers on this. But do you think Bernie Sanders bought one person a hamburger during the government shutdown? He was so concerned about SNAP. You think AOC went anywhere and bought some eggs for anybody? Or do you think Liz or just any of these people, you think any of them did that? Of course they didn't, because progressives don't actually want to be good. They want to pretend they are good while using your money. That's how it works. Here is Angus King, one of the senators who did jump the Schumer boat, explaining to Joe Scarborough that the shutdown didn't work and Trump now came out looking better.
You have to go back to what the strategy was at the beginning of the shutdown. There were two goals, both of which I support. One was standing up to Donald Trump. The other was getting some resolution on the ACA premium tax credit issue. The problem was the shutdown wasn't accomplishing either goals, and there was there was zero likelihood that it was going to. In terms of standing up to Donald Trump, the shutdown actually gave him more power, Exhibit A being what he's done with SNAP and SNAP benefits across the country. Oh, by the way, Joe, you're going to love this. Guess who's getting paid during the shutdown? Not the park rangers or air traffic controllers, the ICE agents.
Well, I'm fine with ICE agents being paid. I'm showing you that clip to show you that even the Democrats who jumped ship, they're not that great. Wait, am I correct? Was he one of the ones that jumped ship? Or did I just make that up? I feel like I might have made that up. Did Angus King jump over? I might have literally made that up in the middle of the show. Yeah. What's that? Did Angus King vote to end the shutdown? Was he one of the people that I read? This is a lot. We're doing a full-on. No, he was not. Was he? He did. Oh, he did. Thought I completely made that up. He's an independent, and apparently he did. Okay, very good. Here is the most racist woman on television, although in a weird way, she's not talking about racism right now. Sunny Hostin over at The View explained that Republicans want to cut SNAP benefits, which means they want to starve people, and the Democrats caved. Again, Sunny, did you feed anyone during this? I don't know how much, can we find out how much Sunny makes a year? Did you donate $100 into buying a gift basket for a poor family? And of course, what's it really about for her? Schumer, he's not radical enough, and he is done.
Let's be clear. The Republicans run the House. The Republicans run the Senate. The Republicans run the White House. The Republicans run the Supreme Court, as far as I'm concerned. This was a choice by Republicans to cut SNAP benefits. This was a choice by Republicans to cut ACA subsidies. This was a choice by the Republicans to gut the federal government and federal employment. Democrats had nothing to do with it. I want an opposition party. I think the Democrats caved. I think the Democrats let down the American people. And like you, Whoopi, I have absolutely no faith that the Republican Party will come to the negotiating table in good faith. You know, you do something like this, shame on you the first time. You do it twice, 3 times, 4 times, shame on me. Shame on the Democrats for even believing that the Republicans will, even vote on it. I think Chuck Schumer, his days are over. If he cannot keep his caucus together, he needs to go. He needs to be.
They are all so angry. This is why you don't make politics the center of your universe, and you better believe in something else besides what's going on right now. Like, so freaking angry. But again, Sonny, what I would say to you is for 40 days, you guys complained that people were starving and SNAP benefits weren't being paid and everything else. So then 8 Democrats decided to open the government so that people wouldn't starve again. Wouldn't you be at least happy about that temporarily? Like say, okay, hey, The government is running again. Those people are not starving anymore. I mean, unless what really is going on here is it's all bullshit. It's all lies. Everything they do is based in fear and hysteria and everything else. But even putting that aside, I would welcome you the same question to Sunny Hostin. We're told it looks like about $2 million a year over there. I think her husband is worth $1 gajillion too. So you have plenty of money. I don't begrudge you any of that. But how about you do something for the people that are hungry? Like, could you do that yourself, at least temporarily? Like, you don't have to do it all the time, but when you're so concerned that the government's not feeding all of these people, could you maybe do a little of that? I am being told by Joseph right now that her husband is worth a cool $450 million, according to Yahoo. So I assume that means he could buy like a couple Happy Meals or something for these people. Alas, I'm going to guess she did jack shit. Here is Bernie Sanders, who is on, you might argue he's on the losing side of this, right? Because the progressives wanted to keep starving people and keep the government closed. But in reality, he's on the winning side because this is going to break apart the Democrat Party, and that's what he's long wanted as a socialist. So here he is going after Chuck Schumer, a man who, again, voted no on the freaking thing in the first place. But sorry, Chuck, you ain't saving face.
Look, what you got right now, Chuck Schumer is part of the establishment. And I'm sorry to say that many people in the Democratic caucus are part of it. I would say we have 8 or 9 out of 47 people who I would consider to be progressives. So you can argue, and I can make the case that Chuck Schumer has done a lot of bad things. But I think getting rid of him, who's going to replace him? Who is going to replace him? The issue right now is doing primaries, getting people involved in the political process who are going to create a government and an economy that works for everybody, who have the guts to take on the oligarchs. So I think we need to take on the Democratic establishment all over this country.
So you get it, guys. That's what this really is about. Chuck thought that he could just kind of feed them a little something. I'll vote no. You guys vote yes. We'll keep it on the DL. It's exactly what John Kennedy predicted, right? And he thought that might keep the wolves at bay. He thought that might keep the barbarians at the gate. But now the barbarians are in. And you are in a lot of trouble, man. But if Bernie is right about that they've got about, what did he say about, they've got about 8 of the like hardcore radical progressives in there and the rest of them aren't, and they're going to primary all of them. If he's right, then how about the majority of you Democrats? Again, who I don't agree with on most political points at this juncture. How about you guys get some balls and start pushing them out of the party instead of just letting them push you out of the party and going full communist? How about you guys get some balls? That would be my recommendation to you, although I doubt you're tuning into the Rubin Report to get my political procrastinations. Let's talk about Morgan & Morgan for a minute, and then we will talk about the new presumptive leader of the Democrat, and he is a cold-blooded lizard himself. I'm not talking about the iguanas falling out of the tree, although he is at least partially related to them. If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, your injury could actually be worth millions, and most people have no idea. Insurance companies love to lowball claims, offering way less than what you deserve. That's why there's Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys across 50 states. They've been fighting for people for more than 30 years, and they don't settle for lowball offers. Just recently, they won $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, and $6.8 million in New York, all way above what insurance companies offered. And the best part, it's completely free unless you win. No upfront costs, no hidden fees. It takes only a couple minutes to see if you have a case. Did you know you can start a claim with America's largest injury law firm in just one click? It's super easy. Just go to forthepeople.com/Rubin or click the link in the description and pin comment. Okay, so a little continuation of where we left off there. Here is Bernie waving his arm. He's very Bernie Sanders in this clip, I warn you in advance. And he's telling everybody they want more morons and bonies.
So what we have got to do is go above and beyond what happened yesterday, that terrible, terrible vote, and understand that, yes, you have parts of the Democratic establishment who are way, way out of touch with where the American people are or where we have got to go. And our job is to build a political movement. We are doing it with the 3 candidates for the Senate. I expect more to come with many candidates in the House, candidates all over this country running for local office. We're going to build that movement, grassroots movement, to do what Mamdani did in New York City, all over this country.
Well, there it is. That's what we're going to do. We're going to primary all of the moderate people. I'm not a Democrat. I caucus with the Democrats. The Democrats actually should have kicked me out a long time ago because I was here only to destroy the country. By the way, I've never passed a serious piece of legislation. I've been in the government for 40 plus years. Yes, I'm a millionaire with 3 houses, and I used to rail against millionaires all the time. But now I'm a millionaire, so I rail against the billionaires. You see how it goes? But I'm telling you what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the thing that I said, which is primary all the people who love America, who like capitalism and stuff. Ugh, God. We put this little image together because the Democrats are really going to have to figure out what to do, and I think we can illustrate it quite effectively here. So 3 points for a great Democrat leader. You're going to have to toe the DNC line. Now, the DNC line is a little hard to figure out what it is, because is it anything of the remaining moderate? Probably not. It's probably someone that just wants to govern as a giant, pandering, big government, flanky, floozy, who's destroyed virtually everything. And there we have a picture of smiling Gavin Newsom, so that seems like it makes sense. You have to be presidential. Well, I will give him credit, using the aborted babies that he puts in the grinder and then uses them as hair gel. He does look presidential. And can you put the image back for just a second? Pushes radical policies with a smile. I mean, that is Gavin Newsom more than anything else. So now let's dive into where Gavin Newsom is at with things. He went on CNN and talked to Jake Tapper, and Tapper asked him if Prop 50, where he zoned California so that it will become even more of a Democrat supermajority, if that really is about him potentially running for president.
Prop 50, whether that was part of a longer term campaign for you, because obviously you have acknowledged you're thinking about running for president possibly in 2028. You haven't made any decisions. You're focused on the midterms. I know everything you're about to say. But great. Whether or not the decision was influenced by that at all, what about the response to the decision? Has that changed your calculus at all? Because it does seem like Democrats see fight in you, and a lot of them seem to be, at least the ones we just saw upstairs in Texas, like the fight. I mean, Congressman Al Green introduced you as a future president of the United States.
It's very generous words. Look, with humility, let me say 2 things. I disagree marginally with the premise of your question. This is the Election Rigging Response Act. This was not a fight we chose. This is a fight we felt was important to fight. Proposition 50 was never on the docket. It was not part of the agenda. For me, though, it goes back further. It goes back to the federalization of the National Guard.
God, he is just horrible with this guy. He has a massive, massive, ridiculous supermajority in that state. He has caused businesses and people to flee. Nobody is like, I'm going to move to California to start my dreams. Like, some people, I guess, still move there because the weather is still okay if your house isn't burning down because he can't manage forest fires or whatever. But we know I don't even have to bother getting into that and all the U-Hauls that leave and everything else, right? We know all of that stuff. But him implying that if he did Prop 50 because he's trying to save America, right, guys? It was Texas. I'm not even defending redistricting at all. I'm not defending gerrymandering. I'm not defending anything that Texas did or didn't do or anything else. But his basic position is, I will save democracy by destroying it. The ends justify the means. And do you think he is really going to save democracy? Just listen to the hysteria. This is all the hint you need to know that he is going to run for president.
It's not about the rule of law anymore. It's the rule of Don. He's picking and choosing, deciding which court decisions he agrees with. He's quite literally running an extortion racket. And not just with universities like UCLA and others in California, but he's doing it with law firms. He's doing it with media organizations. He's doing it with some of the most well-heeled and powerful corporate leaders. You're seeing state capitalism, not just crony capitalism. There's the one thing everything has in common, the tariffs. The tariffs for him are all about leverage and about the game that he's advancing, ultimately that inures to his personal advantage and his family's advantage as well. It's all happening in plain sight. And so for me, I have more clarity as it relates to this moment. Prop 50 was part of that. The outcome was meaningful. The outcomes all across the country, I think, just give us more confidence as we move in the future.
I always like to give these guys credit or give these guys, not credit. I try to give credit where credit is due. I try to give these guys a little advice. And here's Jake, where I would give you a little advice here is when he's just babbling, like he's just babbling. What is he talking about? Yes, the tariffs were designed so that Donald Trump's family could get richer. We know we have had these completely out of whack trade deals. Almost everyone acknowledges that. Even Democrats acknowledge it. They don't like tariffs now because he likes tariffs as a way of evening the playing field. And you can have your own internal debate on whether you think tariffs are good and whether they're just leverage or whatever. You can have those conversations. But yes, Donald Trump became president again on the idea of we're going to stop having America screwed. We are going to put America first. But really what he was doing was trying to enrich his family. It's just profoundly absurd, but not as profoundly absurd as when he says he's not running for president.
So are you trying to bring people to the table so you can run for president?
No, God, seems the most miserable job in the world. I think the
Literally,
current
you will
president
never
understands
consider
that.
running for president.
No, I have zero, and don't even talk about it.
Did I hear you say you don't want to be president ever?
No, who wants that? With all due respect, ex-president sounds like a great job. No,
well, there's only one way to get there. You know that.
No, I'm looking in the. Here's a tape. You'll have this tape. No.
You're promising not to run for president. Was that you're promising?
Yes, but let me give you a proof point.
That's great.
Bless you.
You got it. Love it. Need the proof point.
You got the proof. That was it. You just wanted that quote.
You
just want this tape.
You
and that
promised
quote.
not
You
to
made
run.
a promise. You broke your.
We're not even newsbreakers.
Are you running? Would you ever?
Let me answer the question. No, and then no, and then no, and then no. Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
Man, you know those clips that we show you from like Donahue and Oprah Winfrey in the 80s when they're asking, I mean, literally Oprah Winfrey, will you run for president? And now she has total Trump derangement syndrome. And they ask him, will you run for president? And Trump is always like, well, I'd prefer not to, but we are throwing our country away. And he talks about the trade deals and he talks about the borders, all of the stuff. I mean, no one has been more consistent over the last 4 or 5 decades in American public life than Donald Trump, right? But when they ask him, his response always is, I don't want to do it. I'm doing other things. I'm building businesses. I'm building hotels. We're changing, cityscapes and all of these things. Like, that's what I'm doing. But I want somebody to do it. And they basically forced him into it because he realized, like Homer Simpson, I'm a guy like me, right? Newsom is the complete reverse of that. He's telling you I'm not going to do it when you know damn well he is going to do it. And I would say the most dangerous part of Newsom, in a weird way, is Newsom a yes, he is a psychopath. But is he does he fundamentally hate the United States of America? No, the guy is the grandson of Paul Getty, and he grew up rich, and he's got the whiner, and he's got the good life and all of the stuff. It's afforded him so much, his fake teeth and slick hair, like it's done all that for him. So does he fundamentally hate America the way that Bernie and the progressives hate America? I don't think so. But someone who stands for nothing, he has no principle other than attaining power. In a weird way, he's far more dangerous than if you just threw out some ridiculous ideologue Bernie type out there. Here he is over the last couple of days. He's been in Brazil explaining that the Palisades fire, where there was no water in the freaking reservoir, so that when the fire department showed up, they literally couldn't get water to stop the houses from burning down. Although the guy, we'll leave that aside for a second. Here he is explaining that despite that it was really about climate change. That's why it all burned down.
Home values will start to decline. You're seeing it across the spectrum right now, in my state included, which is one of the most blessed and cursed states as it relates to climate. We're on the tip of the spear of climate change, simultaneous droughts and simultaneous floods. The hots are getting a lot hotter, the dries drier. You saw one of the most devastating wildfires in American history in the middle of winter in Los Angeles in January. 100-mile-an-hour winds attached to fire. And as we rebuild, the number one concern people have is, how do I get my home insured? And how do you get a developer to develop a home that can't get a mortgage, which requires home insurance? So from across the spectrum, from financial risk to the issue of cost of living, which is universal, to global competitiveness, this is a no-brainer. As I say, what Trump is doing is unprecedented in American history.
As they say, what Trump is doing is unprecedented. Yes, the fire and the building codes and the lack of water, somehow that has something to do with Trump, or we should maintain giant international agreements like the Paris Accords that there's no mechanism that forces anyone to do anything except the United States just dumps money into like everything. I should be clear, he is not Paul Getty's. I was just babbling off the top of my head. He's not the grandson of Paul Getty, the Getty Museum, which almost burned down in several of the fires. His father was Paul Getty's attorney, and he delivered the ransom money to the kidnappers of Paul Getty's grandchild, which that whole story is a whole other thing, which is quite interesting, but not for right now. But here he is, a little more from the evil lizard man, explaining that Elon, the great capitalist Elon Musk, who's building tunnels underneath LA, who's trying to send rockets out there, who's got the Starlink up there, who freed us with X Twitter, blah, 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 that it's all because Elon's success, it's all because of California's regulatory environment.
We've extended out now for decades this commitment to sustainability and stability as it relates to the investment posture. There's a reason Tesla was created in California. 3.2 billion reasons why they were supported. There'd be no Elon Musk as we know him today, forgive us, had not been, I say that with love in my heart, $1 trillion will do that. But proud of that, proud of his innovation, proud of that leadership because of California's regulatory environment, because of the Air Resources Board, because of that regulatory posture that we are now building on and building off of, and now extending it substantively to 2045.
Gavin, some of that would be correct if we lived in bizarro land. It's the regulatory situation in California and the high taxes that has caused Elon Musk to move all his companies out of California. You're talking about 2 decades ago when people moved to California because there was still the promise of freedom before taxation went completely bananas and before the regulations all went crazy. If that's what you mean, I guess you're saying something true, but people are leaving because of you. Like, that is the fundamental truth. Why are they moving to Texas? Why are they moving to Florida? It's not because of our regulatory environments here. It's because of our deregulatory environments here. We have less regulation. We make it easier for companies to build. We have less corporate tax so that they can invest more, et cetera, et cetera. This is a bit of a non sequitur, but back in 2007, Gavin Newsom banged his best friend's wife, who his best friend was his chief of staff. He banged his wife, and I just thought it would just be kind of fun to show, you know?
Everything you've heard and read is true. And I am deeply sorry about that. I've hurt someone I care deeply about, Alex Turk, his friends and family. And that is something that I have to live with and something that I am deeply sorry for. I am also sorry that I've let the people of San Francisco down. They expect a lot of their mayor, and my personal lapse of judgment aside, I am committed to restoring their trust and confidence, and will work very hard in the upcoming months to make sure that the business of running the city is framed appropriately.
That one was really just for me, you know what I mean? But think about what a scumbag. Like, it's one thing to cheat, right? It's one thing to cheat when you're married, but to bang your best friend's wife. Like, you guys are pretty good friends, and you're not even married, but if he banged your girlfriend, would you still be friends? He would not show, oh, wow, Connor, dropping the hammer. You steer clear. Let's talk about Chef IQ for a second, and then we'll go to whatever the Democrats have left. Cooking Thanksgiving dinner is high stakes. It feels like one dried out turkey can ruin the whole day. That's why I love Chef IQ Sense. This wireless cooking thermometer takes all the guesswork out of holiday cooking. The USDA says turkey needs to reach 165 degrees to be safe. Your eyes can deceive you, but Chef IQ Sense makes sure that you hit that perfect temperature every time. It couldn't be easier. Just insert the sensor, tell the app what you're cooking, then sit back and relax. Chef IQ Sense tells you when to flip, when to take it off the heat, and even how long to let it rest. Basically, it's like having a personal chef watching the stove so you can actually hang out with your guests. No more oven peaking, no more dried out turkey, just perfectly cooked meals every single time. And it's not just for turkey. It works for steaks, chicken, fish, whatever you're making. And right now you can get 30% off site-wide with code Rubin at chefiq.com. That's chefiq.com, promo code Rubin. Connor just choked out Joseph. That was a total joke, man. I have no evidence to think that, and you're not even married yet. Joe Biden was the president before this. He obviously was not in charge of anything. There was an auto pen doing a lot of it. He got a soft coup, blah, 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 blah. But only a year and a half ago, he was running for president, and they were all pretending that it was going to be possible that he would not only be president right now, but for the next 3 years. Think how absolutely insane it is. He showed up yesterday at a restaurant. And tell me if this man you think could have been president right now.
It's quiet.
I miss you.
I'm not even doing that to be gratuitous. It's just like, this is what, when you look at what the Democrats now have, it's partially because they propped that up. They were not honest about everything. They lied about everything. And it wasn't just that he, by the way, it's not even making fun of anyone's age or anyone's conditions. And now he has cancer and everything else. It's not about making fun of any of those things. It's about making fun of the theater around all of it, right? Because it was that guy, and then it was a lady who he literally, Biden himself, only brought on board because she was black and female, and apparently because she was a 3D chess player.
I was aware of my opponent's strategies, and I wasn't about to fall prey or fall into those traps. And part of his strategy and those around him was to try and take me off our game and message. And I wasn't about to be distracted by those flames that he was trying to throw to get me away from my highest priority, which was talking to people about the economy and their well-being in terms of their financial well-being. And so I understood the game that was being played. And I made a decision that I wasn't going to get played. And
is she the president? Because I'm pretty sure she's laughing at the wrong point there. So again, it's just more nothingness with her, which I just put out there to illustrate. They just don't know what they are going to do right now. But a party that doesn't know what it's going to do, whether it's dementia guy or her or auto pen or Timu Obama or Schumer is on the way out. What this is rife for, and this is the warning here, what this is rife for is for the radicals to take over, which is exactly what Bernie says his plan is. So now let's jump back to Timu Obama. Here he is on with Kirsten Welker on MSNBC, and she's wondering if Mamdani, if moron Zamboni, can deliver on his promises. And you can see he doesn't, because he doesn't really believe in him. He doesn't really want it to happen, but he does not know what to do.
So frozen rent, free buses, universal child care. Do you believe that he can deliver on those promises very quickly, Leader Jeffries?
Well, he's going to have to work with the Rent Guidelines Board and probably more importantly with the governor of the state of New York and the state legislature in order to enact those proposals. But it's all centered around the notion of making New York City more affordable, which is, of course, what we have to do throughout America. In a country that's far too expensive. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. It's unacceptable that far too many people are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, so you can see what he's saying. He doesn't want to get on board all the Mamdani stuff, but then, then he gives us these just sort of generic platitudes about expenses. Okay, so then how about you push for deregulation? How about you push for tax cuts? How about you acknowledge that it was your party that printed all the money and was more for lockdowns, which we're still in the hangover of, and everything else, but you're not going to do that. Interestingly, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who's quite horrific in her own right, who endorsed Mamdani, and then he refused to endorse her, which is just perfect for these people. She's now saying she's, quote, not ready to move forward with free buses. So I don't know how all the inner workings of New York works, whether free buses, I guess some of the funding, comes from the state, not all of it comes from the city. But okay, that might be a little bit of a Democrat that is going to stand up to some of this lunacy, because again, guys, it doesn't take a wizard or a mathematician to know that nothing is free. Yesterday, Zohran, or Moron Zamboni, introduced his new chief of staff. Her name is Elle Bisgard Church. She is a socialist from Cali, and she has no real-world experience, but here she is for just a moment.
I would now like to introduce my chief of staff, Elle Bisgard Church.
All right, great lady, seems nice. That's just fine. We have a little info on Mrs. Church. Mamdani's chief of staff's Elle Bisgard Church, a California transplant with zero executive experience, zero budget management, and zero accountability for anything beyond DSA-approved slogans. Her resume: activist radio show, academic theory, and organizing arrest performative stunts, not running a city agency. And this is from CityDex NYC, which is a great follow on X. And then he goes into the rest of the cabinet, which is just an absolute disaster. And now let's get over to I can't call him moron every time. So let's get over to Zohran or Zohran or whatever you want to call him. Here he is saying, and I'm fairly certain this is illegal, but nothing matters anymore. Here he is explaining that the NYPD will not work with ICE because he wants New York City to remain a sanctuary city.
What I will continue to do is be someone who will stand up for New Yorkers when Donald Trump is seeking to fulfill his promise to create the single largest deportation force in American history. And my NYPD will continue to not be of assistance to ICE whenever they are trying to terrorize New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs.
Okay, ICE isn't trying to terrorize anyone. ICE is going after illegals who are not here legally. It's in the word legal and illegal. It's all there, right? And they're removing those people from the United States who should not be here. If you live in New York City, you really should leave if you're decent. I know it's not fun. I would also recommend watching Fiddler on the Roof again and watch at the end of Fiddler on the Roof. When it's time to go, and you can find greener pastures. That's the story of the Hebrews. They don't like the Hebrews very much, obviously. But sometimes when it's time to go, it's time to go, because you don't want to be there when the Cossacks or the Marxists or the et cetera's come. But it's not just moron Zamboni that's terrible. They've also got Lady Eyelashes, Jasmine Crockett, and well, to Bernie's point, they want some more crazy people to run. Well, she's considering running for Senate in Texas.
So I got to ask you, because your name has been floated all over Washington, D.C., and I'm sure all over Texas as a potential U.S. Senate candidate. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I am considering it, is what I can tell you. I think that we're living in unprecedented times, and I think an unprecedented candidacy is what we need to do in Texas if we're going to do something different. And so I think when you're talking about how expensive these races are, starting with someone who is known and has a brand that doesn't take from anybody, I think being a fighter for the people is what people are looking for.
That is where we are at in politics, guys. Why is she going to run? Because she's known and she has a brand. Does she have any of the right ideas? Has she accomplished anything in her life? Much like Zamboni, has he ever done anything other than run and win? Can he accomplish anything? But he's got a brand, and it's a slick brand, and she's got I'm telling you guys, I'm going to be for Florida secession. Like, there's just no way around it at this point. But if you want to see just the level of patheticness around the Democrats, I'm always looking for I always keep saying I'm looking for the lefties online, like who are the pundits online, not just the generic CNN people. There's this woman, Stephanie Miller. She's been a lefty progressive radio host for decades. I think I did her show way back when I was a lefty, probably over 10 years ago. This picture came out of her. She's kissing Jasmine Crockett's feet. But I'm told we're in a cult. We're the ones in a cult. Here's Trump on Crockett.
This Crockett, this is a very low IQ person. And I look at somebody that comes from Somalia where they don't have anything. They don't have police, they don't have military, they don't have anything. All they have is crime. And she comes in and tells us how to run our country. The Constitution says this, the Constitution, the whole thing is crazy.
All right, so it was a little bit of a strange segue that he did there. He's talking about Crockett, and then obviously he's moving on to Ilhan, but it shows just the radicalness of the party. So I didn't want to end the show on that. I wanted to end on, okay, so what are we going to do here, right? Yesterday I talked quite a bit in the middle of the show about that there's been some craziness on the right, and I think good people, I think most Americans are good. I think it's at least 80% of us and we get lost in the battles, and I include myself in that. It's all of that, right? But most of us are good and decent. Most of us want to live with people who are a little bit different, and we can disagree on the issues and all of that stuff. So that's why, actually, keeping MAGA together is so important. So I want to show you this video. This is Cheryl Hines, who, of course, you know as Cheryl David from Curb Your Enthusiasm, but she's been an actress in Hollywood for years. She's also happens to be married to RFK. So these are hardcore, these were people that were hardcore Democrats, right? She comes from Democrat Hollywood. Bobby Kennedy, his name's freaking Kennedy, hardcore Democrats. Well, she's on a book tour right now. I think we're going to have her on the show in a week or two. And she went on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast. And here they are coming to agreement about a man that they both hated probably 2 years ago, Donald Trump.
Again, one good thing about Trump, he really, really does not like war.
Which I love that about him.
I kind of do, because I don't want war either, and most of them are unnecessary.
Agreed.
I mean, he took a long time when I had that dinner with him talking about the pictures he sees coming from Ukraine, the stuff that doesn't get out on the news. It's like raw footage of bodies in the field.
Yes.
And you could tell it really moved him.
It's
like, I do not want to see this, and I'm the kind of guy who can fix this, at least. You know, he's never not going to be Trump. So, of course, he's like, I solved 9 wars. And, you know, okay, even if it's half that, it's still good that we're solving them and not starting them.
That's the thing that I find that I really like about President Trump when he talks about wars and talks about Ukraine. And he talks about Ukraine and Russia, and he will say they're losing people on both sides.
So I'm not just playing that clip because it's given Copal a nice little shout out. That is a bottle of Copal right there. I'm playing it because, look, these are two people who are not really in Trump's camp, right? If Trump was running again, he's always threatening to run again. I still don't know if Bill would vote for him, right? But what Bill's saying is he does not like war. He actually is affected by those images. We are wrapping this stuff up. And then he's saying, he's still jokester and ego and whatever. And there you have Cheryl, who I have no doubt, I've heard her talk about it actually, and I will ask her about it, who has lost friends over her husband joining scary Donald Trump as he now tries to solve autism and as he tries to get, dyes out of our children's cereal and everything else. Here they are a little bit more on the human side of Trump, which you don't get to see that often.
Somebody was just asking me about when I met him, what surprised me the most. And I said, I was surprised that he really likes to listen to people. He's very curious and what you have to say.
They hated when I said that. Again, because I'm just telling you what happened. What, should I lie?
I guess so. I guess
right.
That's
He
what
kicked me in the balls under the table. And then
I knew he would.
He threw the spaghetti against the wall when I raised the subject of tariffs. No. No. Mentioned it again. They hated me for it. That as opposed to so many important people I've met who, when you talk to them, you don't feel like they're really listening. They're kind of like, you know what I mean? And then when they answer you, it doesn't quite track. They're
just waiting for their turn to talk.
Yes, or they're just on a different level. I mean, these are show people too. I've had that. But I didn't get that with him at all.
No.
I got a guy who looked in my eye, was listening to what I said, waited until I finished.
Again, this is someone that you might have said 5 years ago had Trump derangement syndrome. And Cheryl, who would have never said anything positive about Donald Trump. So what does that tell you? And by the way, that tracks, he said the word tracks, that tracks exactly with my experience when I've now met him a few times, but the first time, particularly when I met the president, and he was interesting and he made eye contact and he listened and he asked questions and all of those things. And that does tell you that there is something fundamentally different between him and some of these hysterical people that we've shown you on the show today. But I want to show you one more clip from that, if you can bear with me for one more second. One more clip from that sit down, because I think this gets to the heart of what has been so confusing to so many people for so long. The entire cultural apparatus for decades now has told us that Democrats are good guys and they're kind of nice and they like diversity and they're decent and Republicans like war and money and they're mean and cold and everything else. Well, here's two, I would say, former Democrats on that.
The Republicans have been very kind to me from the beginning. Even from the beginning when Bobby was running as a Democrat, they weren't mean.
No.
And they never have been.
No.
And I can't say that for the Democrats.
I agree.
And it's
It's sad because it's not the Democrats we grew up with.
Right, yeah.
And that's the difference that people don't, I think, see. They're like, why did you turn on the Democrats? Well, first of all, I didn't. Like I said, we voted for the same person. But I'm not going to pretend I don't notice how different they are.
Yeah.
How mean they've become.
All right, so now I want to show you, and you've seen this clip before, but this is a great illustration of why everyone thinks politics is about policy or something. You have to drug people over the head with charts and explanations and everything else, but it actually is quite human, because what Bill is saying right there is that over time he realized that these Republicans weren't that bad. And Cheryl saying she was kind of surprised that the Republicans were welcoming to Bobby. And you may remember a couple of years ago when I had Bobby on the first time, and we had never met in person before. It was the second we went live on camera was the first time we met. And by the end of the interview, even though we disagreed on many things, many different things, including affirmative action and much more, and we debated it, I said to him, I don't know if you'll be a Republican by the end of this thing, but I know you won't be a Democrat. And you could see his eyes light up. Well, now I want to throw back to October of 22, when I sat in that very chair, although they were organized a little bit differently, that Cheryl was in right there. And I told Bill exactly that about how kind Republicans, really MAGA, can be.
Sounds like they were Trump loving, not America loving.
There were American flags everywhere. There were gays for Trump, Latinos for Trump.
Really?
Yes, everywhere, and nobody cared. And by the way, they didn't burn down Rodeo Drive like Black Lives Matter and anything. It was, and then I started going back. I went a few times and I did live streams from there. And I'm telling you, you could have walked in that audience and people would have, would a certain amount of people have been like, fuck Bill Maher and but you know what? A lot of people would have been there like, you know what? Bill Maher's here. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Which, think how different that would be than if you went to an AOC rally where you would be hated beyond imagination.
You're right.
I don't mean that as
no, it's right.
It's just true. It's just true.
They're more, the left are more purists.
So look, this is where we're at right now. There's a lot of political fights to happen again. There's weird stuff happening on the right, which I'm going to do my best to try to quell some of the lunacy. But overall, I think most of us fall into what we've just shown you of these last couple clips. It doesn't really matter what your differences with Bill Maher or Cheryl Hines are or anything else. Like, these are people who love America, right? It's against the progressive lunacy and whatever sort of fringe lunacy might be appearing on the right. That's the bulk of Americans. And we just need better leaders or better communicators to keep pushing that, because that is the thing that will save the country right now and well beyond. All right, we are a little behind schedule here because we had that odd technical hiccup, I assume, because my God, it's only 45 degrees in Miami right now. So we're going to do a post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com, and then I'm interviewing Chaz Palminteri, which is a really interesting one. We're going to talk about mafia movies and a whole bunch more, and we're going to save that, I think, for around Thanksgiving for you guys. So I'm psyched for that. So post-game show in a minute. Everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.